Why are you right-handed or left-handed? It feels like one of those questions humanity should have answered by now, but the deeper scientists looked into it, the stranger the answer became, because the decision was probably made before you were even born. Around 90% of people are right-handed, and the strange part is that this number has stayed almost unchanged for hundreds of thousands of years. No matter where humans lived, there has never been a population where most people were left-handed. And this is not just habit. Doctors can sometimes predict a baby's future dominant hand before birth using ultrasound. They look at which hand the fetus moves toward its mouth more often. Once that preference appears, it usually stays. But how do we know this has always been true? Archaeologists found the answer. When you use one arm more than the other for decades, the bones slowly change. The dominant side becomes slightly stronger and denser. That means ancient skeletons can reveal which hand someone preferred. And the results are surprising. Even humans who lived 500,000 years ago show almost the same pattern we see today, roughly 10% left-handed. But one discovery is even stranger. In a cave in Croatia, scientists studied the teeth of a Neanderthal who lived about 130,000 years ago. Its front teeth had tiny diagonal scratches. What happened? The person was holding an animal hide with their teeth, pulling it tight with one hand and scraping it clean with a stone tool in the other. Sometimes the tool slipped and hit the teeth. The direction of those scratches revealed something incredible. The tool was usually held in the right hand. The same pattern appears in even older human relatives almost 2 million years old, which means something strange, long before writing, before civilization, possibly before language itself. Our ancestors were already favoring one side. But why? For a long time, people thought the answer was genetics. Then researchers found a problem. Identical twins share the same DNA, but in about 1 out of 4 pairs, one twin is left-handed and the other is right-handed. So genes matter, but they do not decide everything. Today, scientists think handedness comes from many small genetic effects, plus something researchers call the right shift theory. To understand it, remember one thing: your brain is cross-wired. The left hemisphere controls the right side of your body. The right hemisphere controls the left. And in most people, language lives mostly in the left hemisphere. That same side also contains regions strongly connected to tool use. So something interesting happens. Language, hand control, and tool use often end up grouped together. If the brain receives a strong push in that direction, you become right-handed. If not, your body may end up choosing more freely, which means left-handedness may not be a special instruction. It may simply be the absence of a strong instruction to become right-handed. But that raises another question. If right-handedness became the default, why didn't left-handers disappear? The answer may actually show up in sports. In boxing, fencing, tennis, and combat sports, left-handers appear much more often than their percentage in the population. Why? Because they are rare. If you spend your whole life competing against right-handed people, your reflexes adapt to one pattern. Then suddenly a left-hander appears. Everything feels mirrored. Even a tiny delay can change the result. But that advantage only works in direct competition. In other parts of life, the opposite happens. Tools, learning, shared environments. Most of the world was built for right-handed people. Scissors, school desks, guitars, even simple everyday habits. There, being left-handed can become a disadvantage, and maybe that is why humanity has stayed close to the same number for so long, around 10% left-handed. There is one more interesting detail. Right-handed brains often divide tasks more strictly between hemispheres. Left-handed brains tend to be a little more flexible. Some studies suggest left-handers sometimes recover language faster after certain injuries because the opposite hemisphere can help. It is not a superpower, just slightly different wiring, which makes the story even stranger. Because for centuries, people treated left-handedness like a mistake. Children were forced to switch hands. Teachers punished them. Families tried to correct them, but it almost never worked because the choice had already been made, not by you, but by your brain. Before your first breath. The hand holding your phone right now might be older than civilization.